Hi everyone, Julia here from ITM Events, and I'm so glad you're joining me. Today is going to be a great day. We are talking about attendees arriving early at events. Now, of course, this relates to live events and not virtual events. Despite being in the middle of the COVID quarantine time in our life, this is a topic I wanted to talk about for a long time, but it came back up on my radar because RFPs for live events have started to come out again. Yay! I'm so excited. That gives me hope, that shows me the light at the end of the tunnel, and I hope that the rest of you are as excited as I am to get back to live events. I miss it terribly. So, as I said, this was a topic that I've had on my list of blog posts to do for a long time, and so today I wanted to talk about it. And I'm going to use a specific example of an event that we had and the problems that it caused us. So we had planned an event for a client. It was dead of winter and it was being held in a venue downtown Ottawa. The event was supposed to start at 6 p.m. if I remember correctly, and we had a major snowstorm that day. So normally we'd be concerned with people not showing because of the snowstorm. However, what happened instead was everyone showed, and everyone showed over an hour early. I want to say we were at like an hour and a half early when the first guest arrived. So I think that happened, one, because of the snowstorm, two, because we held it downtown. And if you're familiar with the Ottawa area, downtown is where kind of like all of the main, like all the government buildings are downtown, lots of companies are downtown, and our event was being held downtown. So a lot of people who live outside of downtown didn't want to leave downtown and then come back for the event, especially when there was a major snowstorm. I think if the weather had been a little bit more normal, people likely would have gone and done some shopping or whatever before actually arriving at the event. But because of the weather, they made their way right from work or wherever it was they were to the event, which caused my team a great deal of issues. So that's what I want to talk about, was just about how attendees arriving early at an event can actually cause a lot of problems for the team that is preparing for your arrival. So we certainly don't ever want attendees to arrive late. That is just as annoying for event planners. But arriving an hour and a half before an event is a major problem for event planners because we are still in the middle of preparing, right? And the venue too, not even just the event planners, but the venue wasn't prepared for people arriving an hour and a half early. So people started to arrive, and at first I thought, okay, it's just one or two people, it's not a big deal. And then literally the people started to stream in. And our event was kind of divided in two. So we had kind of pre-event space down on the bottom floor, and then actual event space was up on the top floor. So we were still prepping the pre-event space. Thankfully, I had already set up registration, so that was all done and ready. We were able to accept people as they were coming in. The problem with that though is that I didn't have staff available to be at that table alone because I still had my staff working on our setup pieces. So immediately I had to divert people. So I had to move one of my setup people to the registration table to manage registration, and then registration started to get so busy I had to move a second person to the table. So then that backlogged everything else, right? Because my intention was we were going to set up the downstairs first, which we were almost done. Registration was set up. We had an experience happening kind of in a little separate room off the main cocktail hour space. And we were almost done setting that up. We just had a couple more pictures to hang and just kind of get things cleaned up. That was actually the major issue too, was just that we still had our boxes everywhere and our toolbox and just garbage and everything was all laid out in that space still when people started to arrive. So our plan was to finish that setup, and then I would move the entire team upstairs just to finish the upstairs. So the tables were all set and everything was done, but we just had some work left to do on the place cards. And then work with the AV team just to make sure everybody was set up and ready in line to go with what we had planned. So people arriving that early really threw everything off. That put a lot of stress on the venue to be ready because their staff still had all the hors d'oeuvres out and they weren't like they were all like spaced out as they were trying to prep. And then all of a sudden they were thrown into making cocktails and, you know, getting everything done for the attendees that showed up early. Thinking back on it now, you know, what would I have done differently? And this is an event that haunts me, not because like the event itself was amazing and the client was thrilled and it turned out perfect, but I am a bit of a perfectionist, and it really bothers me that the room wasn't ready when the people started to arrive, especially because I was so proud of that experience that we had created. And I really wanted people to come into it and experience it the way I had envisioned it, but instead they walked in and there were boxes on the floor and stuff. So that just, it's just one of those ones that's gonna bother me forever. And I know that I will never make that mistake again, which is good, right? That's how you learn. But I think about this event a lot, and I realized afterwards that there were doors to that little extra room that we had and that we were working in, and I should have closed those doors, and then we could have opened up the experience once I had the time to clean everything up and get everything moved. And then we were, you know, and then obviously, like I said, like it slowed everything down all the way through. So as an attendee, I would recommend, you know, we want you to show up early because it's professional, and especially if there's a registration process, we don't want you showing up last minute, because then we're trying to fire so many people through registration in order to start the speaker on time. But an hour and a half early, whether the weather is bad or not, please don't. It's pretty simple. Please don't, because it puts a lot of strain and stress on the organization that is there setting up the venue, the attendees, the AV team, the speakers, all of that. It's just, it throws everything off. That's it. That's my message for today. Just a quick message for those of you attending events, and then maybe just a little helpful hint for any event planners who might be listening, or venues, on, you know, just when that starts to happen and you start to get overwhelmed, because it does happen fast and it wasn't what you planned, take a deep breath and stand back. If I had just taken a minute to breathe and look, I probably would have realized those doors were there and we could have closed them up. And the space would have looked amazing with the doors closed too, because they were beautiful doors. So it would have actually added to the event, and then the kind of that grand opening of the experience, I think, would have been great. So unfortunately, I didn't think of it, but take my mistake and learn from it, and then and you do better. All right, thanks everyone.